Thank you for joining us again. I hope you're having a great time in this technical takeoff. This is session 36 or something. It's been amazing, and I've been following, a lot of you are following us and coming from session to session, and we really appreciate all the love that you're giving us. My name is Joe Lurie. I am hosting today's Ask Microsoft Anything with our delivery optimization team. That's Narcisse and Andy and Carmen and Amy. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And because we only have about 25, 26 minutes, we're going to get right into conversation. So we'll start with Narcisse, and then she can pass the baton. Narcisse?
Hi, everyone. I'm the product management lead for the delivery optimization and Microsoft Connected Cache team. And Andy, go ahead.
I'm Andy Rivas. I'm on Narcisse's team, product manager, working on Microsoft Connected Cache. Amy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy. I'm also a product manager here on the DO and MCC team. And lastly, Carmen.
Hi, guys. I'm Carmen Forsman. I am also on Narcisse's team, working as a product manager, more on the delivery optimization side.
That's awesome. And some of you, I know you all remember this, but like Andy and Narcisse and I have shared a stage before talking about delivery optimization, Microsoft Connected Cache. It's been a couple of years since we've been able to share a stage together, but it's been a long conversation. We've been having this for a little while. And I want to start by talking to Amy, I think, about, we've had a couple of questions from Sebastian and Martin and Thomas, and thank you for asking the questions early, about standalone DO or standalone Microsoft Connected Cache. What can we share on that?
Yeah, thank you all for asking. We have been working hard on the standalone. I know it might have been a while since you've heard about it. We currently have a private preview going. It has almost 60 active customers. If you're interested in joining us and trying it, we'll put the link here for how to sign up, and I can directly onboard you afterwards. We are working on our public preview and no official date yet, but we are working hard, I promise, and you'll hear an update from us sometime in the coming year.
Do we, thank you, and thanks for popping up that link as well. Do customers, should they think about switching over to standalone if they're using Configuration Manager? Is there any reason to use one over the other? Are you able to talk about that?
Yeah, it kind of depends on your network configuration. We've heard from customers that they don't really want to manage their distribution points anymore and want to move towards the cloud, managing their devices through Intune. If that sounds like you, standalone is a great approach to allowing your devices to cache content, cache all kinds of Microsoft content. If you're still managing your distribution points and still working on that, we have customers that are somewhere in between. You might then want to consider staying on the MCC that is in the SCCM itself. And I don't know if anyone else in our team wants to comment further on that.
My comment is it's not SCCM anymore, but we can shelf that conversation for another time.
Yeah, it really depends on what stage in the kind of your own transformation, evolution, movement, whatever word you want to call it. If you're moving from an on-prem managed and you're moving towards cloud managed, you could kind of sit in both worlds. You can get all the benefits of connected cache from using it deployed to your existing DPs today. And then you can get ready and you could have it take part in the preview, and you could have some sites maybe where you are using the preview standalone version. So
with that, Andy, what happens if, we have, even on Microsoft, sometimes you're in the office, sometimes you're at home, and our customers are the same way. They have someone that's going to be in the office one day and they're going to be at home another day. What happens then? What's the best policy to set if maybe I have to come through VPN when I'm home, but if I'm connected to the office, there's no more VPN? What's the best policy to set there for delivery optimization? And I know I addressed that to Andy because he was talking, but in that case, I see you shaking, nodding your head as well. So anyone feel free to come off mute.
Yeah, so there's one policy to leverage a DHCP server to configure your connected cache. And the nice thing about it is it will be dynamic, right? If the device is at home, it's going to query DHCP server, not get that policy set, and therefore just connect directly to the internet. When the device comes to the office, everything just works seamlessly. So, that's definitely the best option. Even if you set an explicit host name as your connected cache server, you can control that through your own DNS and make that resolve only when you're connected in the office. And I'm actually going to hand it over to Amy to talk about the VPN case, because that's more of an upcoming news.
Yeah. So we have a policy coming up that directly allows you to configure how you want your devices to connect to your connected cache when you're on VPN. So that is an upcoming policy. Keep your eyes out for that. We've heard similar requests from other customers, so we're excited to have that as a feature coming soon.
Great. And for those of us that are just starting with DO, we might have a lab set up. So we've got 2-3 machines in our lab, maybe 4 machines in our lab. If I have 3 machines in my lab, would I be expected to see some peer caching happening and getting, is there a minimum number of devices that we should start expecting to see, better handling of the DO or connected cache traffic?
I can take that from the DO perspective. So, just at a high level, DO was really just built as a large scale technology meant to, handle large numbers of enterprise or devices within enterprises. But we also know that before you roll out DO and maybe do some custom configs and that sort of thing, you're definitely going to want to do some testing. And a minimum number of devices, you can get it to work between 2 devices. Yes. But the more you have, the more realistic that is. But yes, you should be able to get that working. In fact, we're actually working on some new documentation around testing, my own testing in our lab, for starting with kind of a basic configuration with a couple devices and how I can see peering working between those devices. And then I expand it to 5 devices, just so that folks can see, a real world testing environment of how I think they're going to go and do this. And so we thought it was really important for us to take a step back and put that kind of documentation out there. So that will be, look for that soon. I'm still kind of working on the finishing touches for that, but I think that will be really helpful, and would love to hear any feedback specifically on that when it does come out.
Thanks, Carmen. And Andy, is that the same type? We're talking about connected cache. Carmen answered towards the DO side, but how about connected cache? Same thing. You can see right away with 2 devices. Is there is there a minimum number of devices we should be really testing with for the MCC side of things?
Yeah, as far as MCC, once your clients, either through an explicit policy that actually sets the DO cache host, or whether you're using something like DHCP that will on the fly dynamically set that. Once that's configured, DO client will begin downloading from that server. So whether you have 1 device, 10 device, however many devices you have configured, that device will begin pulling from the server. Of course, if you only have 1 device, you're probably not going to see much benefit. So if you have multiple devices, maybe that first device is going to pull it from cache, but that's going to be seeding the cache. All the rest of them then, of course, will then receive that benefit of the content coming from the cache.
And it's probably an opportunity to emphasize how DOs, peer-to-peer, and MCC complement each other.
Yep.
So DO is intended to be a distributed caching solution, and you want to make sure there's not any, there's no impact on the device that's participating and sending those bytes to other devices on the network. So by design, each device is supposed to contribute just a little bit, not upload everything 100% of the time to any other device. So sometimes we see, just in terms of the expectations, customer tests with 2 machines, and they see only some of the files are being seeded and uploaded to other devices. So that is by design. In the case of connected cache, that's a dedicated caching server. It caches anything that's being requested by devices on the network, and it won't be picky. It's just the first time it's going to pull it through from our distribution network, our servers. And then every request that comes in later at the even by range level is going to be coming from the cache. And that's really the main difference.
Cool.
Yeah, if I could reach over and put my shoulder on Narkis, she's right next to you, I'd say, yes. And Carmen,
I'll get there
Dio
also.
and NTP work together. Let's make a chain.
Yeah. Carmen, I saw a question that got asked, I think a couple days ago on our tech community page where people are watching from. But for those of us that are watching on YouTube and can't see those comments, there was a question about the security of delivery optimization, and how can my security teams note if a device is getting information just from some other random device? How can we ensure that that's secure? And I saw that you did answer it. Do you want to kind of talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. And for folks who don't know, I did put a link in that response, but maybe I can put one here too. Yeah, so, that's a question that we do get a lot. And we put together this particular page that I was just referring to better explain what's happening in the client to service communication when a particular piece of content is requested for download. So when in order for DO to know about a piece of content, that content is how we refer to it as being published to our service. At that time, it is the file is, there's a hash created, right? And actually it's a hash of hashes, and usually we break those down into, as a default, just into 1 megabyte chunks. But so for every piece of content, there's a hash that we're going to verify the authenticity of that content before it's even downloaded. So when content is asking another peer for that content, it starts to verify the hash. And so that there's nothing that's going to be downloaded that doesn't match, essentially. And if there is an issue and something is invalid and that doesn't match up, we will default to our simple mode, which is just downloading just a simple, what we call simple mode, which is not using our services and not doing that hash verification any longer. But so I think just in general, that's, we're very confident that, when we hash that content, we're not pulling down anything else. So you can be sure that that's what you're getting.
Great, thanks. It's a good discussion on the workflow, and I know we just had the workflow link up on the screen as well, so you can rewind back a little bit to get that link if you missed it. That's a great description of how that works. So we appreciate that. I also saw a question earlier about Windows Autopilot. So this might not be the right team to ask about Windows Autopilot, but we know that when you use Configuration Manager and you have a task sequence, the apps that are being delivered through the task sequence might be coming off a delivery optimization server. But with Windows Autopilot, there is a way, if you're using Autopilot into co-management, that you can call a task sequence from Configuration Manager into your autopiloted devices. For those devices, if that task sequence from Configuration Manager is being delivered to an Intune managed device, is DO still working here to deliver that content? Is that where you might need a standalone, or is it coming from a Configuration Manager distribution point using connected cache?
So if the task sequence is being triggered by the Config Manager client, then that content won't be using delivery optimization. So that's the kind of the simplistic distinction is whether the content is truly managed through Config Manager or not. If it's an Intune managed content, it's triggered through Intune. That can be Win32 applications, it can be your Office applications, store applications, Windows updates of different kinds, all of that will use delivery optimization. And you can use connected cache on a config manager installed on a distribution point for that. So it's just the question of who's managing the content itself.
Great, thanks. Thanks for that. It's a good point, because that is something that our customers have been asking about. We got another question from Jeffrey on throttling options. So what are some throttling options with delivery optimization for sites with a low bandwidth capacity?
So we have two kind of different types of throttling options in delivery optimization. Those apply whether or not you're using peer-to-peer. So it's always a good idea to set those in sites that have low connectivity. There's the ability to set it as a percentage. So you can say for interactive downloads versus downloads that happen in the background, what is the percentage of bandwidth that you would like delivery optimization to use? That percentage is calculated against the available throughput as the download takes place, and it's measured all the way to the source that we're pulling from. So it's, if I have a fast connection locally here between my device and my router, that's not what we're measuring. We're really measuring all the way through. So that's one option. Definitely set it in your devices. In networks where you have multiple machines and the connectivity is very, very low, extremely low, we recommend setting an absolute throttle. So this is where you can say, I want 1 megabit a second per device at a max. And again, you can set it separately for interactive and background downloads. Interactive is when the user is actively trying to get something from the store, or actively looking at a progress bar, right? Like, so if they're sitting in Ubi and waiting, that's interactive. So definitely setting the absolute throttle has a more of an immediate effect versus the percentage one that might take a few seconds for the device to figure out that it needs to throttle back. If you multiply that, now you have 100 machines all doing this calculation and all trying to go at once first and test and download, that might create load. So that's why for the very limited networks, we recommend setting the absolute throttle.
Sure, thanks. Appreciate that answer. We got a question from Jose on if I add Microsoft Connected Cache to an already in place distribution point at a location, will all the content for that's one we just answered for Autopilot, be deliveries from there? So that's where I got the Autopilot one. So yeah. Sorry about that. And a follow-up question for you, Carmen, that came in. What happens when the device is on an open Wi-Fi or home Wi-Fi or with another Windows 10 device? Will the device use peer-to-peer for those devices? This goes back to that security question, that security workflow.
Yeah, and I think that starts with what download mode you're using and how essentially your peering boundary is set. So by default, it's set to the LAN, but we offer the ability to define groups so that you can span, beyond that, or however you want to define that. I don't believe, unless Narkesh, you have anything more to say here with the Wi-Fi specifically, it shouldn't matter, right? As long as you're, it's in the same subnet, it shouldn't matter what, or within whatever defined group that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so basically the choice is yours. If you want to restrict it such that devices at home won't be sharing content with other devices on that network. If you set the group policy for download mode and set that to group, that means we would always look for devices that have that same group, that participate in that same group, and you basically prevent it from happening. But we do actually recommend that you follow more of a dynamic setting where devices at home can share with other devices. Again, the security that's built into it really takes care of pulling the content, only content that's published to Microsoft and curated. It's verified, and it's also kind of in a distributed fashion takes care of any bad content that arrives. So there's never a worry there, whether the source is another device on the Wi-Fi or a device within the org. But knowing that customer are always security conscious, this is really a choice you can make.
Yep, great, thanks. We have a question from Stefan that came in as well. And Stefan, thanks for following us here. We know you ask a lot of great questions throughout the week in our Windows office hours as well. Stefan wants to know, from your experiences using connected cache and delivery optimization, do you see clients using more of the connected cache over peers, or are they even, or do they evenly use both of those technologies?
Yeah, that's a great question. We also actually hear our clients asking us what they should do. And honestly, it's kind of dependent on your situation. We really recommend using connected cache for like a branch office scenario where you have many devices all pulling from the same cache. But at the same time, there's no harm in allowing peering to occur. Really, you just have to set up both, and we take care of it behind the scenes. Your devices will dynamically, like we've used multiple times in this session already, alternate between peering and pulling from the cache. It really just depends on which one is available first. We just want the best download experience for your device. So they actually work hand in hand. I wouldn't say it's one over the other. So we see clients, I guess, to directly answer the question, probably evenly using both. And that way you're really getting the best of both worlds there in terms of bandwidth and sharing with peers in your network.
Okay, perfect answer. Makes a lot of sense. Thanks. Is there a way to force or prioritize clients to use connected cache over a peer solution, or, to get content so it acts more like a distribution point? Can we force that, prioritize that traffic?
Good question. We also get that question, so thanks for asking. We have different kinds of policies put in place for you to customize how you want your clients to get their content. If you want to prioritize connected cache, for example, we do have a way for you to set your download mode such that you're only, I'm forgetting the exact name. I think it's Narcisse, you're gonna have to fill me in here. It's like the foreground delay something.
Yeah, so there are some policies within the DO client where you can configure so that the client will not fall back to HTTP source, and then also you can then configure clients to not fall back from the MCC. So you sort of get both, right? So you can choose to not use a CDN source, that cloud CDN source, and you can also choose to prefer that CDN source even if the download may be a little slower. Because if you think about in some future where you have, and this is where we're going, is that you can deploy connected cache to a client machine in a branch office. So that download speed from that client may not be as speedy as from some server, and so then you can delay the fallback from that cache server, as well as have that other policy which would delay fallback to using a cloud CDN source. So you kind of have two of those knobs where you can kind of play with that. And then, of course, as we have mentioned, if there are peers available, we will also use those peers so you get the best download experience possible, whether you're in a large enterprise environment, we have thousands of machines, or whether you're in that branch office.
A lot of customers are going to love to start using this when it's like when they can really use it and take full advantage of it. And we have about, 90 seconds left. So I remember that last week, 2 weeks ago at Ignite, I think we talked about some new delivery optimization reporting. Did we announce some reports coming? Did we announce that at Ignite?
Yes, we did. Well, I think in the technical takeoff session.
Okay.
So update compliance reporting, hopefully everyone is familiar with that. DO had a presence there, is now Windows Update for Business reports. And so, yeah, it has been announced. DO is coming right along with it. We are essentially launching our preview now. And so we are doing our best to make sure that, yeah, we're working with customers on that. If folks are interested, I am happy to reach out, and if you want to give us feedback on that, that would be great. Just reach out to me directly, and I can get you going on that. But yes, the answer is yes, and there's some exciting new things there, some familiar things and some exciting new things. The biggest thing I want to say on that is we're just kind of getting started, and we want to know what you want to see in there. The great thing about this new format, it's very flexible. So you have, definitely lots of flexibility yourself to make it what you want. But as far as the template, I'd love to hear the kinds of things you'd like to see there. So.
That's awesome. Thanks. And for the final thoughts, I just want to thank Narcisse and your team, everyone for joining, everyone viewing. I've been throwing their Twitter handles up there, so make sure you follow them all on Twitter for some more great content. We're going to continue answering the questions on the tech community chat through tomorrow afternoon Redmond time, which is noon Pacific time, US Pacific time. So keep the questions coming. We're going to keep on answering them. And we hope to see you all soon, and enjoy the rest of this technical takeoff.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.